Reyna had always been drawn to the strange and unusual. She thrived on the obscure and the eerie. So when a new butcher shop opened on the corner of her street, she had to investigate. The place was old-fashioned, with wooden shelves and a chill that seemed to steep into your bones. Its windows were always fogged up, giving it an unsettling air, like something out of time. She couldn't resist. The moment Reyna walked in, the pungent, metallic scent of raw meat filled her senses. There was a strange aura to the place, but the butcher, an old man with sunken eyes and pale skin, welcomed her with a crooked smile. His words were polite, but something about the way he watched her made her feel like prey. "You looking for something special, miss?" he said, voice gravelly. Reyna shrugged, trying to keep up her cool. "Just looking." His smile widened. "I've got just the thing." He disappeared behind the counter, and Reyna felt the coldness in the room deepen. Moments later, he reappeared, cradling what looked like a lump of ground beef. But this wasn't just any meat. It was shaped, no, sculpted into the figure of a tiny man. Its limbs were twisted, arms too long for its body and its face. It had eyes, tiny black beads that seemed to shine with a terrible intelligence. Reyna felt a chill race up her spine. "It's a gnome," the butcher said casually. "Made fresh this morning. A companion of sorts. Take him home, care for him, and he'll be loyal for life." Reyna laughed awkwardly. "You're joking, right? It's just ground beef." The butcher's face darkened. "It's no joke. Take him and your life will never be the same." Reyna wanted to say no. She wanted to walk out of the shop and never come back. But something, whether it was the butcher's commanding presence or the unnerving gaze of the meat gnome, compelled her to accept. She took it home, placing it on her kitchen counter, convinced it was all some strange prank. That night, Reyna awoke to the sound of wet footsteps in her apartment. She sat up in bed, her heart racing. The sound was faint, like something sticky dragging itself across the floor. She peeked out from her bedroom, and there, in the dim light of the hallway, she saw it. The gnome. It was standing. The meat gnome, somehow animated, had pulled itself off the counter. Its tiny eyes gleamed in the darkness, watching her with an unnerving intensity. Reyna froze, her breath caught in her throat. She couldn't move. It took a step towards her, and she swore she could hear the squish of raw meat as it did. "I'm yours now, Reyna," it whispered, though its mouth didn't move. The voice seemed to come from everywhere, echoing in her mind. Over the next few days, the gnome's presence became more intrusive. It didn't speak often, but when it did, its words were soft, almost affectionate, but with an underlying menace. Reyna tried everything to get rid of it. She threw it out, she burned it, she chopped it up and buried it, but every night it returned, whole again, standing by her bed, whispering sweet promises of eternal companionship. "I love you, Reyna," it would say, its voice wet and heavy. "We're meant to be together." Her friends noticed the change. She became withdrawn, her skin paler, her eyes hollow. No one believed her when she told them about the gnome. They thought it was a joke, or worse, a sign that she was losing her mind. But Reyna knew better. Every time she closed her eyes, she could feel its gaze on her. It was obsessed. The final straw came when she tried to move away. Thinking distance would free her, she packed her things, left the city, and stayed in a hotel far from her old life. That night, she woke up to the sound of wet footsteps. "I found you," the gnome whispered, climbing onto her chest. Its weight was cold and heavy, pressing down on her like a nightmare. "You can never leave me, Reyna. We belong together." Reyna screamed, but no sound came out. The gnome's greasy, raw flesh wrapped around her neck, holding her in place. It leaned in close, its rotting meat breath filling her nostrils.
You'll love me in time. Just wait.
By the time Raina's friends found her, Raina was gone. In her place, a woman-shaped figure of ground beef sat in the corner of the room, motionless, with tiny black eyes that gleamed with a terrible intelligence. And somewhere in the darkness, the gnome waited for his next companion.